For more than 12 years, a strange quiet hovered over one of Hollywood's most watched families, a silence so heavy that people stopped asking questions because the answers never came. But silence can only last so long, and now, it has finally cracked, not through interviews, press statements, or dramatic confessions, but through a single quiet choice made by a daughter who grew up in the shadows of two worlds. At 19, Suri Noel has stepped forward not with words, but with identity. And that identity no longer reflects the name of the most famous action star alive. It reflects something else entirely: her mother, her survival, and the years she spent carving a life from the quiet spaces Hollywood never saw. Suri was once a child who didn't choose fame but was born into it. She was photographed before she could speak, followed before she could walk, and defined by a last name she never fully understood. The world remembers the little girl in designer coats, held protectively by a mother who always looked like she was walking through a storm with no umbrella. But behind those images was a deeper reality, one shaped by distance, belief, control, and a love story that cracked long before anyone noticed. And now, as she begins her adult life under a new name, people are asking the question the press never dared to push. How did the world's biggest movie hero lose the one role that mattered most? The answer begins long before the silence, and long before the heartbreak. But to understand how far they've drifted, you have to understand how it all began. It started like a fairy tale, almost too perfect, almost too scripted, almost too cinematic to be real. When Tom Cruise and Katie Holmes crossed paths in 2005, Hollywood treated their romance like a blockbuster premiere. Katie was 26, a rising star with a soft, approachable charm. Tom was 43, a global icon whose face could sell out theaters with a single smirk. What most people didn't know was that years earlier, when Katie was still a teenager, she had laughed during an interview and admitted her dream was to marry Tom Cruise. It sounded like something written in a diary beside glitter stickers and magazine cutouts. And yet, somehow, impossibly, it came true. Tom fell fast, Katie fell harder. They were photographed everywhere: Rome, Paris, red carpets, balconies, restaurants. The chemistry wasn't just real, it was explosive. And then came the moment the world still talks about. Tom Cruise on Oprah Winfrey's couch, unable to contain his excitement, shouting his love with the kind of enthusiasm that made some people smile and others raise an eyebrow. It was dramatic, surprising, and unforgettable, the kind of scene only Tom Cruise could deliver. In April 2006, their daughter arrived. Little Suri, wrapped in blankets and photographed by magazines as the new face of Hollywood innocence. Tom called her a miracle, Katie called her a blessing. But from the moment Suri took her first breath, there was something else quietly standing in the delivery room: Scientology. The silent birth customs, the secrecy, the controlled environment, it all hinted at a world Katie barely understood. Tom had already dedicated decades to his beliefs. Katie had grown up Catholic and now found herself navigating rules, rituals, and expectations that seemed to reshape her life more each day. Their wedding that November was a spectacle, a medieval Italian castle, Armani gowns, celebrity guests, and a glow that made the whole world believe the fairy tale was real. But behind the curtains, concerns trembled. Katie's parents worried. Her friends whispered. Her comfort gradually eroded. And tiny Suri, the miracle child, became the center of a life governed not just by love, but by a force far bigger than romance. And soon, the cracks in their perfect world would start to show. By 2007, Tom and Katie walked through life like a brand. They were always photographed smiling, always perfectly framed, always glowing with the energy of new love. But insiders began noticing something beneath the surface, something guarded, something tense. Katie, once vibrant and spontaneous, seemed quieter, more cautious, less herself. Whenever she left the house, she wasn't alone. There were always quiet figures nearby, members of Tom's inner circle, many deeply connected to Scientology. They watched, recorded, guided, and hovered in ways that unsettled people around her. Even casual dinners came with a strange sense of surveillance. Journalist Maureen Orth once heard Katie quietly admit, "We don't go outside very much." It seemed like a harmless remark, but for those who understood how Tom's world operated, it wasn't harmless at all. Tom remained confident, charismatic, and unwavering in his beliefs. To him, Scientology wasn't just a part of life, it was life, and his commitment only deepened with time. His older children, Bella and Connor, followed his path, further solidifying the family structure centered around the church. Katie, however, existed at the edges of that structure. Her parents visited less. Her friends saw her drifting. Some said she repeated rehearsed lines about Tom being wonderful, amazing, incredible, as if maintaining a script she didn't write. And Suri, she was the heart of everything. Tom saw her future within Scientology. Katie saw a future she couldn't accept. By 2010, the emotional distance was impossible to hide. The fairy tale had softened into something fragile. Katie began spending more time in New York. She reconnected with old friends. She questioned the world she lived in, and quietly, secretly, she started to prepare. Because when she finally left, she knew she would have only one chance. June 29, 2012. Before sunrise, Hollywood woke to the kind of headline nobody expected. Katie Holmes files for divorce from Tom Cruise. No warning, no hints, no scandal leaks, just a clean, sharp break. It wasn't an emotional decision. It was a strategic one, and behind it was the fear of losing Suri to a world Katie didn't trust. For months, she had moved in silence, preparing every detail with the precision of someone living under watchful eyes. She switched phones, changed security staff, and removed anyone she suspected of reporting to Scientology's internal network. She relocated her legal filings to New York, where divorce laws favored the mother. Tom was blindsided. He was filming in Iceland, celebrating the final days of his 40s, and suddenly, the foundation of his personal life cracked beneath him. Documents later revealed the truth. Katie wanted full custody, full control of education, medical decisions, and, critical for her, religious freedom for her daughter. Former Scientologists claimed she feared Suri would eventually be placed into the church's intense youth program. Katie wasn't willing to risk that. The legal war lasted only 11 days. Tom settled quickly, agreeing to financial support and allowing Katie primary custody. Some say he wanted to avoid public conflict. Others believe he trusted the legal team to preserve the privacy of his world. But the moment the settlement was signed, Katie vanished with Suri. No entourage, no press statement, no Hollywood sparkle, just a mother protecting her child. By the time paparazzi found them, they were walking together in New York, hand in hand, free for the first time. But freedom came with a cost, and silence became their new normal. What came next felt like erasing someone from a photograph. In the decade following the divorce, Tom and Suri simply disappeared from each other's lives. In 2013, during a deposition, Tom was asked if Katie left to protect their daughter from Scientology. He objected, then admitted it was true as one of the assertions. It was the closest he ever came to acknowledging the divide. After that, father and daughter were never photographed together again. Tom buried himself in work, world tour, international stunts, impossible missions brought to life on camera. He climbed mountains, flew jets, dangled from skyscrapers, outran danger on screen. But behind all that adrenaline was a quieter reality. His youngest child was growing up without him. Meanwhile, Katie rebuilt something small and gentle. Parks, school drop-offs, music lessons, grocery trips. Friends described Suri as grounded, kind, and resilient. She developed her mother's calm demeanor and her own quiet strength. But when anyone mentioned Tom, she shifted the conversation. Not with anger, just avoidance. Tom continued paying for school, healthcare, and security, but he never appeared at birthdays, graduations, or public moments in her life. And Suri, in her own way, created emotional distance too. Hollywood might have expected a public confrontation someday. Instead, the years passed in silence, like two planets orbiting far from each other. And then came the moment that revealed more than words ever could. In spring 2024, during her high school musical, the program booklet listed something unexpected. Suri Noel. Not Cruz, not the name tied to blockbuster franchises and global fame. But Noel, Katie's middle name, soft, private, personal. It wasn't a rebellion, it was a declaration. Her own identity built quietly over years of distance. Her graduation list confirmed it again. Suri Noel. Tom was thousands of miles away attending a Taylor Swift concert. Katie sat among other parents, wiping tears, proud in a way only a mother who survived a decade of storms could be. That summer, Suri enrolled in Carnegie Mellon University to study fashion. Katie helped her move in, carrying boxes alone like any other parent, not a single assistant in sight. And in 2025, Suri visited her mother on a film set, no longer a child hiding from paparazzi, but a young woman walking into adulthood with clarity. The world barely recognized her, but maybe that was the point. She wasn't the child of a superstar anymore. She wasn't the symbol of a public divorce. She wasn't the girl caught between two belief systems. She had chosen herself. And she chose a name that meant home. But even as she stepped forward, the emotional weight of her past was never too far behind. And soon the world would see it. In October 2025, a subtle but powerful scene unfolded on a New York street. Suri sat on a doorstep, head down, looking exhausted and overwhelmed. Minutes later, Katie arrived, quickly exited an Uber and sat beside her daughter. No cameras, no crew, no Hollywood pretense, just a mother comforting her child. They talked quietly. Suri wiped her eyes. Then they walked away together for pastries, holding hands like they always had. For anyone else, it would have looked ordinary. But for people who followed their story for 19 years, it felt like the emotional echo of everything they had survived. Suri is now a college sophomore, studying fashion, writing music, building friendships, and forming a world outside the weight of her last name. Her relationship with her father remains non-existent. Legally, he supports her. Emotionally, the distance is immeasurable. The world watches Tom prepare to shoot a movie in outer space, while the daughter he once called his miracle continues life on a different planet entirely. Katie, for her part, focuses on healing rather than blame. She calls Suri strong, grounded, and incredible. Friends say she never speaks poorly of Tom, choosing gratitude over bitterness. But even gratitude can't erase absence. Even strength can't erase longing. And even a new name can't erase the old one completely. Which leaves the question that still hangs in the air. For 19 years, the world has watched a love story that became a fracture, and a fracture that became silence. Tom Cruise remains one of the most powerful actors alive, pushing limits no one else dares to touch. Suri Noel is building her own future quietly, shaping a life far from the noise. Two people who once held hands on red carpets now remain strangers connected by history, but separated by everything else. Will time soften the distance? Will a bridge appear where silence once stood? Or is this one of those stories where the ending isn't dramatic, but simply final? Maybe one day the world will know. Or maybe the truth will stay in the silence neither of them chooses to break. What do you think? Can time heal what distance created? Or are some divides simply too wide to cross? Share your thoughts below. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more stories that reveal the hidden side of fame, family, and the hearts behind the headlines.